Good morning. My name is Dr. Rabina Malik, and it's my pleasure to be here with you today to do your workshop on time and priority management. First of all, I want to welcome you and I want to thank Tandra for supporting this effort and creating this workshop for you. So I hope that you will enjoy it. Again, my name is Dr. Rabina Malik, and just to tell you a little bit about myself, I am an assistant professor of business administration, as well as a global learning and development expert from the US. My research and expertise is in human capital development. In particular, I focus on professional development with coaching, mentoring, and career sponsorship. So today we are going to talk about time management. And I could not start without having you do a quiz. So if you could just take a few minutes and answer these questions. Look at the questions and say yes or no. Do you feel the need to be more organized and or more productive? Do you spend your day feeling very busy, yet wondering why you haven't accomplished much? Do you wish you had more than 24 hours a day to complete all your tasks? Do you feel stressed by an ever busy schedule with no time for yourself? And lastly, do you feel you rarely achieve your 100% production capability? Take a few minutes to answer a few of these questions. Okay, great. Now, if you answered yes to any of these questions, now one of the dilemmas you might have is time management. So when we're talking about time management, we want to make sure that we're using a tool that we can use effectively to achieve our goals within in the 24 day that we all have. Now, also to be more efficient, what we have to do is to make sure that we're allocating time not just for work, but also for our personal activities. So thus, time management is needed by anyone who performs some task or another. So when we're talking about time management, you have a task, that is a part of time management. Time management is the act of taking cautious control over the amount of time spent on specific activities. So that's the theoretical definition there. When we're talking about time management, we're talking about being able to control and predict how we do certain activities. If we don't manage ourselves, how can we manage our work or others? So in managing ourselves, we're managing our time and we're managing our activities and we're managing others. As well as time management is about structure and is about discipline. And lastly, it's about increasing your productivity, effectiveness, and efficiency. So let's talk about time management and stress management for a minute. So 49% of the employees feel that they're under a great deal of stress. And the millennials especially are the most stressed group at 60%. And 77% of the employees regularly experience physical symptoms caused by stress. And then 73% of the employees regularly experience psychological symptoms caused by stress. And that could be anything from anxiety, overwhelm, and when we're talking about physical symptoms, it could be shoulder aches, literally physical. A lot of times it shows up in the back, right? Because we're stressed and we're holding that tension in our body. So how do we overcome sometime this stress management outside of maybe going to the doctor and what have you? Well, part of it is time management. If we're able to manage our time to be more efficient, to be more productive, then we might have more time for self-care. And especially during this time of this pandemic, we want to make sure that we take our time to do self-care. And self-care could look different in many ways. So hopefully, through this time management, the rest of our time management conversation, that you will be able to find one or two things that you can put in place for your own self-care so you don't fall into one of these statistics. So one of the things that I love, a quote that I love is, doing things is not the same as getting things done. Have you ever found yourself like, yeah, but I'm busy, I'm doing things. But the question then, of course, is, but I don't feel like I got anything done. So one of the things that we're going to talk about is, what are those time wasters that we have that have us not feel like we get anything done? So let's talk about some of these common time pitfalls. So the common pitfalls are ineffective scheduling. You're not scheduling your time. You're not scheduling what your to-do list on your calendar. Maybe you're avoiding breaks. Believe it or not, you need a break for self-care. You want to make sure that maybe after 50 minutes or an hour, you take a 5 or 10-minute break, whether it's just to get up. And for me, it's just to get up and go look in my balcony at my beautiful view I have of outside. Or it could be, going to the kitchen to get a cup of tea. Then also multitasking. I know what you're thinking. But Dr. Malik, there are all these things. Yes, I understand. But multitasking is actually a time waster. And the reason being is that research shows that as human beings, we're not effective at multitasking. So that is why we're going to talk about some ways to not multitask and block out our time to focus on one thing and getting that done. Okay? And then addiction to busyness. Do you know someone that's, oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. Okay, confession, I can fall into that as well. We're all busy. And sometimes that addiction to busyness, having to be busy, cannot be very productive. And it could be a time waster, as well. And then there's also overburdening yourself. Like saying yes or taking on projects and not really evaluating what you already have on your plate. Then there's procrastination. Now, I know I'm guilty of that. I think we all at some point have been guilty of that, where we procrastinate on those things that we need to get done. And a lot of times we use the idea of like, yes, but I work good under stress. Under stress. Remember, we talked about stress a few minutes ago. So it's not necessarily a good thing when we're procrastinating. So we will talk about some ways that we can put stuff in our schedule so you have a schedule and you're not putting it off. And then there's getting distracted. One of the common time pitfalls, getting distracted. And this, especially right now, if you're working from home, you have your children, you have to cook, you have to do various things you may have to do. And you could get distracted. Or maybe we're at work in the office and we get distracted. Maybe our coworker walks by and we start a conversation. Or we get distracted of looking at something that we don't need to be looking at the time because we're working on something else. So avoiding getting distracted. And the other time waster is not prioritizing. Not prioritizing what's important. And we'll definitely talk about that, but it's really looking at, okay, what do I have to do this week? What do I have to do today? And prioritizing that is important. And then also absence of goals. So sometimes the pitfall for time management, a time waster, is not having goals, that you're just working on whatever's in front of you. And one of my favorite authors, and he's a professor as well, Simon. He always talks about your why. Like, what's your why? And allow that why to actually create those goals for you, and to have you move towards those goals. To have your less distractions, because you know that your purpose is bigger than what's distracting you or not having a goal. And lastly is not keeping a to-do list. A lot of us can be guilty of not having it. You just walk in and you say, okay, well, I know I have some things to do. But what are those things to do? So making sure we have a to-do list on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, of what are we going to accomplish to go along with our goals. Okay? So common time wasters: not prioritizing, getting distracted, are two of the most common ones. Now, we talked about the time wasters. Now let's talk about the benefits of good time management. Because this is what I really want you to walk away with today, is the benefits of having effective and good time management. So, benefits of time management: there's less stress. We talked about that earlier, how much there is stress. There's less life frustration. And, we're not wasting a lot of time, or when we're not wasting a lot of our energy as well. But the biggest thing is we also increase our work output. And obviously, we function more effectively. We have more free time for ourselves, for our family. We have more control over our job responsibilities. And you know what? It really is greater happiness, right? We create happiness when we have more time management, when we can relax and we're not burdened by the things that we know that we need to get done or haven't gotten done. So the benefits of time management, the three that stand out, are less stress, less life frustration, and increasing your work output. So why is time management important, and the benefits of time management? Well, your reputation is at stake. So if you don't have time management and maybe you're not performing highly effectively and efficiently, what is your reputation going to be? Are you going to be asked to be working on bigger projects? What are those things that might get in the way of you having the next promotion? Positive impact on your career, your family, your friends. So having good time management allows you freedom. See, I believe in having freedom, and freedom of time is so important. And that freedom of time could be to be able to work more effectively, to be able to spend time with your family and friends. One of the things is we don't want to have a regret, like, wow, like I wished I had spent more time with my family or with my friends. And I will just tell you a personal story. Although I'm teaching time management because I kind of actually good in it. I'm good at planning and time managing. But I will tell you a personal story. My mother passed away a year ago. And before my mother passed away, I was working on a couple of projects and I was so busy. Like I was so busy that, she wanted to go see her best friend. And I said, okay, I will take you. And, I didn't get a chance to take her. And I try not to have regrets, but I think about that. And it has me to reevaluate my time management. It has me reevaluate and prioritize what's important. Because one of the things is I want to have a positive impact on my family, on my community, on my friends, and those people around me. So that's one of the things that is really imperative about time management, is giving you that freedom so you can focus on those things that are important to you. And thank you for allowing me to share something personal. And around time management, it's also you're perceived as, are you dependable? Like, do you have some sort of structure? And as we're looked at as somebody that's dependable and structured, and we can count on this person to do X, Y, and Z, what you will find is that there will be more opportunities for you. So as you'll notice earlier, I talked about career sponsorship as one of my areas of expertise. You get sponsored. People advocate for you when they see good habits, and part of that is how you manage your time. And lastly, you're received as well organized and highly productive in your organization when you have good time management skills and people are seeing you being productive and handling your business. Now, let's look at ways that we can overcome our time wasters, right? So what are those ways that we can overcome them? So let's have you do some work here. What are your habits? What are some of your habits when it comes to getting things done? So let's just take a few minutes and have you write down, what are some of your habits? It could be you procrastinate. Remember, go back to those pitfalls that I talked about. All right, what are some of your habits? Okay, very good. Now, I want you to take those habits and keep that list because we're going to work on how to make sure that we use the tools that we're going to do to help you impact those habits. Okay. So the first thing that I really love to talk about is using your energy efficiently. Now, we all have different times that we're more productive. For me, I know I'm about to say, don't laugh at me, but I am a morning person. So that might mean you might see emails from me at 4:30 in the morning. Yes, 4:30 in the morning. I'm an early riser. I like to get up early. I like to start my day early and be productive. So look at yourself. Where do you find yourself more productive? And again, just to give you an example for myself, like if I have a writing assignment, now I do have a PhD, so you can imagine I've done a lot and I do a lot of writing already. That's a part of my profession. And for me, I know that my brain is the freshest when it comes to doing certain things like writing for me first thing in the morning. So what is your time? When are you the most energetic and your brain is sharp? Okay, very good. And so that's why I was just the same thing, understanding your biological clock, because some people are better in the morning, some people are better in the afternoon. Figure that out for yourself. And then, so you say, okay, great. Now that I know this, what do I do with it? Well, what you do with it is this. Then you want to make sure that you're doing things that are important during that time. So for instance, if you're good in the afternoon and you have something to write, like I was just talking about writing, then you would want to make sure that you allocate your time in the afternoon to do that writing, to do those hard projects where you're using your mind and you have to focus. So doing it at a time that works for you and that you know that you're going to be the sharpest. Also, having meetings. So if you know that you're the sharpest in the morning and meetings and some important meetings, try to schedule those meetings in the morning or try to schedule those in the afternoon, depending on, when you're the sharpest. But it's really important for you to understand this so you can also then plan your schedule and plan your work. So, my people around me know that I'm a morning person, that by the time they get going, I have already probably accomplished half of my day's to-do list. So, first thing in busting your habits is looking at what is your clock, by understanding your biological clock, understanding where are you more efficient with your energy. Okay, good. All right. Now that we know when we have good energy, when we have our good energy, let's talk about tools for time management. And the first one, I know I'm going to use this, and you might say, oh, that's so old school, Dr. Malik, and it can be, but you know what? Some people still like to use planners as a tool for time management, okay? So you may like a planner. Personally, I do. I don't necessarily have a planner, but I do have a notebook. I do have a notebook that I write my lists down on, and if you'll notice, my notebook is, it's not large. It's small enough to go into my purse, go into a bag, go into somewhere that I can take it, and then I can have this with me at all times. So then when I need to write something down, I can just write it down. At the end of the day, I look and see, okay, I had these meetings. What are some things that I need to do? And where do I need to schedule those in my calendar? Where do I need to put them in my to-do list or my activity log? And then we're also going to talk about the diary. But planners are very important. And if you like to write and if you like a planner, please don't be embarrassed by those people that are very technical based. Now, mind you, I'm telling you that I like the planner, but I'm going to show you. I also love my calendar on my iPhone. Okay, I love my calendar on my computer. I live by that. It tells me when I need to do something. The alarm goes off. I use this efficiently for myself because I know where everything's going to be at any given time. Okay? So let's talk about tools for time management. So the first thing is, do you know that there's a cost to your time, right? So you have to understand there's a cost to your time. So you have to understand your true value. So you can calculate your true value by looking at your salary, and I'm saying taxes because in the U.S., we pay taxes. You can talk about your office space, your office equipment, all of that expenses that you have, and then your hourly rate. That is your cost. That is your value. And so when you're talking about your cost, and sometimes I have to do a cost analysis. Do I give this to my assistant to do? Do I do this myself? Do I give this to someone else? Because how much is it going to cost me on my time? So it's really important to understand the cost of your time as well, and doing things that are on your to-do list, and some of the things that are priority to you. The other thing is also know where you stand. Like, where do you stand in regards to, are you going to do it yourself? Are you going to have help around you? And what are you willing to do when it comes to that cost and that value? And lastly, what resources do you need? Sometimes you may not have an assistant. Sometimes you may be like, no, I'm going to do this by myself. I don't need help. Really look at your resources and what resources do you need if you're looking at your time and you realize you're not being efficient at it. And you may not even be, sometimes we think we're being productive and we may not be. So let's also talk about making activity logs. Okay. Now, this is one of my favorite ways to find out where we waste our time and where we have bad habits. Okay. Are you ready for this? Are you ready to understand about your bad habits here? All right. So first, when we're making an activity log, and by the way, you go into Excel, you create a spreadsheet, and I have an example later, but you have a spreadsheet, and you just put the times. I usually do from like 8 in the morning to 10 at night. And I block out those, then I write, what I did. What are those things that you do on a regular basis? Okay. So an activity log is making a realistic estimate of the time spent during the day on your job orders or whatever activities you have. And then how much time, usually I'll put it in the time. So if it's like from 8 to 9, okay, I did this. From 9 to 9:30, I did this. Or you can just write down 8 to 9, I did this. It's totally up to you. Then what we're going to do is we pinpoint those critical areas that you spend time on that have low job values, that have low costs, that might be too high cost for you. And then we're looking at what is that high yielding time of our day? Where do we waste our time the most? And I will tell you that this activity is one of the most profound activities to be able to know where your time gets wasted. I will share a story about it later. Now, I'm going to give you a way to do this. Another way to do it. One is just the activity. You take that activity and then we put it in a map format. So you can map out, bring your activities, then you map them out. How do you map them out? You map them out by looking at what is important. So what is important, what is not important, what's urgent, and what's not urgent. Okay? Now, what this is saying here in this diagram is what are those activities that you know that you need to, that are urgent and important that you need to do right away? And what are those activities that are not urgent but important, but you need to do them soon? And what are those urgent but not important? Stuff that you can reschedule, stuff that you can delegate. And then what is urgent but not important? Okay? Urgent but not important. Oh my gosh, I think I have that double. It's urgent and not important, and urgent and important. Okay? So what are those ways? Do you need to delegate it or do you need to reschedule it? Okay? Now, I'm going to give you another way to look at this in this diagram. And if you look at what's urgent, most of the time when we're talking about urgent, we're talking about pressing problems. You're constantly firefighting. You're constantly reworking things. You're constantly rushing deadlines. Okay. And you're constantly you constantly have those deadlines that you have to do. Now, if you think about it, you are this target. You're spending, let's say, on a target, you want to spend 5% of your time here, but majority of the time we spend a lot more here. Okay. Secondly, you want to look at not urgent, and this is where the productivity is. This is where the important but not urgent. So this is where you prepare, you plan, you have prevention systems, you have relationship building, you have personal development. So what I mean here, what does this look like? This is time management. So you want to make sure that you have your productivity. You want to make sure that you are doing your time management here. So majority of the time, you want to allocate 75% of your time here. But majority of the time, we don't spend 75% of our time. But to be productive and to manage our time management, we need to make sure we have that. So then what are those urgent but not important? Phone calls, emails, meetings, walk-ins, social media is our time wasters. Those are not urgent and not important. And we want to make sure that we're allocating, if we're looking at time, we're only allocating 15% on distractions and 5% on those time wasters. So looking at your activity log, and if you were looking at this diagram, where is your time going? Do you need to reallocate your time? And I will tell you a personal story for me. I did, of course, I practice what I preach, and I did this activity for myself. And I found that a lot of my distractions was social media, and a lot of my distractions was, friends calling me for help. And I did this during a time where I was finishing up my doctorate. And so, I had a lot more free time. I was at home, although I was in school and busy, but I had a little bit more flexibility with my time. And so my friends, when they had some issues and they wanted some guidance and coaching, they would call me. And I would just take the call. And sometimes that would be like an hour of my time. And then obviously social media, it would just suck me in. So what I did is when I did the activity log, I put it into this map, and I realized, oh my gosh, I am wasting all of this time. I switched it. So now I have a schedule of when I do my social media, and when I do certain time waster things, maybe when I watch Netflix, and then my distractions, like I don't take phone calls anymore. So if my friends call, and I stopped taking their phone calls. So I would say, hey, can we schedule? And guess what? They actually stopped calling because they knew I was just available, right? Because we train people around our time management. So that's really important for us to be able to notice where we waste our time, and then to be able to take actions around that. So I hope that was helpful with you, and that you look at your activity log, and then did you allocate and look at where you allocate your time. Okay. So again, you can list all your activities that you feel you have to do, and then assign them into those boxes. Pretty much what's important, what's not important, steps to do that. Okay. So I do want to go back here, and when we're talking about when we're talking about the tools for time management, you have your planner, your calendar, your to-do list, your activity log, your diary. I mean, you could consider this your planner or something like that as your diary as well. We talked about the activity log. I just want to focus a little bit on calendar and to-do list. So I wholeheartedly believe in using your calendar. I believe that really you don't even need a to-do list. Everything that you need to do should go into your calendar, okay? In your calendar, you schedule everything in a calendar. So my suggestion would be is to actively take everything and putting it into your calendar. Okay, so if like you have to do something, put it in your calendar. So there's an alert and you know what to do, and it's somewhere. Then you might have, like, let's say you have your to-do list. You're going through your to-do list on a daily basis. Then you take things and putting it in your calendar. I personally take my week looking at, what are all the things I need to accomplish? What are my goals for this week? And then I put that in the calendar on when I'm going to do it, the day and the time. So it's in real time. Okay. So I did want to emphasize that. Okay. So activity log, we understand, like we're looking at where our time is going. Now, what is that process of doing time management? It starts with the GPPS. I did this simple for you so you can understand it. GPPS, right? Like GPS, but we're going to use 2 P's, okay? So it's goal setting, planning, prioritizing, and scheduling, okay? Goal setting, planning, prioritizing, and scheduling. So the first thing is we set our goals. Setting goals helps you to chart the course of your life in your career. One of the things that I always invite people to do, and whether it's my students or my clients, is what's your 5-year goal? Look out 5 years. Where do you want to be in 5 years? What do you want to accomplish? And then work backwards. So what is your 5-year goal? Where would you like to see yourself? And then also you break up those lifetime goals in smaller goals, right? So I mean, let's say you have a large goal. But it may not happen in one day or one quarter or one year. It may happen over time. So it allows you to do that. It allows you to have a daily to-do list as well to be able to know what it is that you want to accomplish. And here's the thing. You can revise and update your list on a daily basis. Sometimes I think people think that, oh, if I make my goals, I have to stick to them. No. You can change your goals at any time. So make your list of goals. Again, I would use a Excel spreadsheet. You could even do short-term goals, mid-term goals, and long-term goals, and then judge your performance accordingly on that. Okay. So first of all, goal setting. So we have to have our goals. Then we're planning. We draw up an action plan. Those things that need to get done. Now, mind you, the goal could just be at work, since we're talking about work here, but it could be at work. And in your work, which is a part of your lifetime plan, maybe maybe you have a report to do that needs to be done. So you do that report and you achieve that goal at a certain time. So draw an action plan. Okay. So we make a list of those things that need to be done. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about planning your time. So sometimes really it works. Like if you have a report due at the end of the month, then you want to work backwards. So I love that method. So if I know I have something due at a certain time, then I back my time up to when I want to start it, when I want to revise it, edit it, send it, what have you. So you also have to know your habits. Remember, we talked about understanding what those days and times are that work for you effectively. So that's one, you're understanding your habits. And then two, it's also looking at your calendar as a whole. And this is a mistake that people make often in planning. They're like, yeah, I can do that next week. But what they fail to realize, the 3 days of next week, they're at a conference. So this report may not be able to get done because they need more than 2 days to accomplish it. So I love working backwards and then looking at my whole calendar and looking at, okay, if I need 5 days to accomplish this, what are those days? And then backing it out. Okay. So plan your time around existing commitments. I just said that. Breaking it down and planning your days. Think about the long tasks and plan accordingly. Some people use Gantt charts and stuff, which you can. I'm not a big fan of using a Gantt chart, but I love using the calendar to make my goals visual. So I use my calendar in my iPhone, as well as I use my Gmail, which is connected to my calendar on my computer. Right? So really having some sort of system that works for you. Just because this works for me doesn't mean it works for you. There's some people who still like to use pen and paper. So if that works for you, then that's okay too. What works for you? And also, just to reiterate, what works for you, but also understanding that just because it works for someone else, it may not work for you. And trying out different things. So if you're like, wow, Rubina really likes the calendar, let me try that. You can try it. See how you like it. Just try out, experiment. But again, what works for you? All right. So plan your week. Use it. Schedule your week out. Prioritize using a to-do list. And around the clock can help. Plan a day. As I said earlier, doing your whole calendar, what's happening at what time, looking at the bigger picture to plan. And then there's another technique is the Pomodoro tomato technique. Basically that technique, now this is good for self-care. And I'm going to tell you about this technique. And this technique is saying, put your alarm. So, you may put your alarm on your phone when you're working on something, put it for 50 minutes, 50 minutes. And then what you do is you take a break for 10 minutes and then you start over again. And this is really good for self-care. As I talked about earlier, is to make sure you're planning in a break for yourself. Now, personally, it may not always, I don't like to work 50 minutes. Actually, my mind works over an hour. So I give myself 60 minutes and then I take a 10-minute break. But again, work it to what works for you. But that technique, you're doing focused time for that period of time. All right. So then you have prioritizing, obviously making the to-do list, consider the value of the task before you do it. Is this worth spending your time and company resources? Can you give it to, can you delegate it, etc.? Prioritize your tasks. The most important job should be completed first and followed by your other jobs. So there's an author named David Allen. He wrote a book and it says, eat the frog first. He says, eat the frog first, right? Like that one thing that we don't want to do that first. So that one thing that you don't like, do that first. Do that important job first sometimes. Then we have scheduling. We talked about this a little bit earlier, making sure you have a realistic estimate of how much you can do, when, what your schedule looks like. Make that plan available when you have time. Also make sure to deal with unexpected jobs that might come in or unexpected distractions that might come in. Minimize stress by avoiding overcommitment to yourself and others, right? So that when you're scheduling, these are some of the things that you want to make sure that we adhere to. Now, I said to you earlier, I would show you I would show you an Excel spreadsheet. And so here's like an Excel spreadsheet. So you could make it Excel spreadsheet with the dates under, and then you could see, like you can make a list of the activities, what you did. Now here, I'm going to talk about time blocking. And time blocking is where you block out a certain amount of time to do certain things, certain activities. And these activities sometimes are the same activities. So for instance, if you look at this time block, it says from 9 to 10 on this calendar is, meeting with marketing team. So apparently in this calendar, all the meetings are in what color? Red. That helps them to see where their meetings are. And then from 10 to 11:45, it's administrative work. So basically during that time frame, all you're doing is that administrative work. And then, the writing project proposal or checking your emails, like you're allocating time to do that. Now, I don't know if you're guilty of this. I know I am. I check my emails all the time, which is not a good habit. So you could allocate in the morning, you check your email, you put that stuff, there's anything to do, you handle what needs to be handled. If you need to check it 3 times in a day, you could do that. But, plan it not to do it all the time because that becomes a distraction, believe it or not. So blocking time is taking tasks and blocking them and then taking that an hour and 45 minutes to do the administrative work or whatever those critical, it says critical bugs here, in technology, there might be some critical bugs that you have to go handle. So that's blocking time. And it's really, really important. We were talking about distractions and being focused and being not multitasking. This is where it is. When you're blocking out time and you've done your time audit with the activity log. Now you're blocking out time to say, okay, I'm going to look, I have my social media as a block time out. One of the first things I do in the morning is I do my social media. I go and check, see what's happening, who's doing what, who needs what. And then I check my emails and then I plan the rest of my day. Okay? So it's very critical that, it's not critical, but it's really very efficient way of accomplishing certain things. Like this writing proposal. If you're working on a major project and you keep multitasking because you're doing it here and you're doing it here, but if you come here and you block out this particular time, then you know that that's all you're focused on, and your brain knows that too. That's why it's really important. Multitasking is not good for our brain. This helps you to focus, and you'll be surprised how fast you get it done. So I invite you to really take that on. All right, so we've got the GPS. We've got, this what we're just kind of kind of recapping our steps is, setting our goals, developing a schedule, revisit and revise your plan, putting it into your calendar, and making it happen, right? So steps, the steps here is setting your goals, develop a schedule, revisit and revise, your plan. So, as we're wrapping up here, I'm gonna just give you some things to consider. I invite you to spend at least 20 minutes either in the morning or in the evening to plan your day. Okay. Again, use your planner, your organizer, organize your workspace maybe before you leave or when you come in. That's something that's really important for just to make sure that your environment is conducive to a workspace. We talked about blocking, bunching your time together. Looking at organizing your emails and consolidating your trips and the consolidating your trips and your tasks is really important as well. So maybe you have to go out, and this is on a personal and a professional manner. If you got to do X, Y, and Z. If you have 3 things that are X related, go do 3 of those. So have the trips and tasks, consolidate them. Do micro deadlines. So if you have this proposal due, have some deadline. Okay, I'm going to do page 1. I'm going to do section 3. Have those micro deadlines as well along the way. Recognize when you're suppressed your abilities. Recognize when you might need some help or you might need some resources. Now, I didn't talk about this, but consider a time management app. Again, if that works for you. I've tried a few. Honestly, none of them really work for me. What works for me is my phone, having my calendar, and having my notebook, and that's what works for me. But it might work for you. There's other resources in regards to time management. I hope that you learned a lot from me today. But there's books, podcasts, articles. Really invite you to check them out as well. And we talked about some other techniques that you can use for time management. So one of the things that sometimes we can do is like we plan. I know I'm very guilty of this. Like I have a meeting, my meeting stops at 10 and then I have another meeting at 10 o'clock. But allow yourself some in-between time, not only for self-care when it comes to stress management, but also to make sure you get your mind straight for the next appointment. Maybe there's some things that you need to write down and take notes from. I say leave 7 minutes earlier for appointments. Plan at 7 to 15 minutes time block in between appointments. Also make sure you're, taking care of yourself, talking about stress management and time management, that you have quality sleep. Maybe one of the things that you might want to do is wake up earlier. If you're busy and you have a lot of planning to do, but wake up earlier. For me, the biggest thing is to exercise. Maybe you wake up earlier to pray. And then, maybe you can allocate another half an hour. So, once you pray, you can, do some tasks, plan your day, some downtime, some alone time. So that's where the low, slow mornings, come at. And then the other thing is not to manage your time and, like maybe while you're in bed, like you're like, oh, let me write this down, because the brain is tricky. It considers that area sleeping, like your brain is like now like, okay, I need to go to sleep. It's not active. So make sure that when you're doing thinking activities that you're doing them outside of a place where you're supposed to be relaxed. And also be gentle and compassionate with yourself, right? Like time management it's not an easy task, and we want to make sure that we are doing we're doing it correctly. And that we are compassionate, with ourselves. Okay. Sometimes reward yourself. Be flexible. Okay. Do not think that this is it. What I mean by that is like, oh, I can't change my goals. I can't change my schedule. No, you're adaptable. Be be flexible for yourself. Reward yourself if you've accomplished something. Got out of a bad habit. But sometimes, if you're working on something, maybe a better time management, ask for feedback. I said earlier, getting up early could mean, doing a exercise routine to manage your time. to manage your mental state, as well as, eat healthy, retain your focus, staying calm, meditating, all those things that go into those slow mornings. And you might even have some other thoughts, you might want to put in when you're talking about stress management as well as time management. So, components of time management: goal setting, planning, organizing, activity log, delegating, managing your interruptions, scheduling, prioritizing. And I really invite you to develop habits of eliminating at least one of your time wasters each week. Imagine if you did that over time and how effective you could be and more productive. Always have clarity on your objectives and where you want to go. Focus on achieving and setting your objectives. And remember, I love blocking out time. So, block out and reserve time for things that are important to you. Personally, for me, I block out time even for personal stuff that's important to me, like, spending time with my friends and family. That's important to me. So I'll block that out as well. And set priorities to achieve every day in the same day. And I'm going to reiterate again, before beginning your work for the day, make a list of all your activities. So that is my webinar, seminar on time management and stress management and time priority and being productive and effective with your time. And for me, as I stated to you earlier, being able to manage time gives freedom to work more creatively and to be innovative, freedom to be more free with our family and our friends. So really, hopefully some of these techniques supported you. So any questions that you may have, comments, complaints, compliments? Okay. Just wait a few seconds. Anything you want me to go over again? All right. Feel free to post your questions and answers. Okay. Well, if there's any other thing that you want me to reiterate, please feel free to ask as well. We do have some time, so don't be shy in asking. All right, very good. So no question, no takers. Well, I just want to thank you so much for your time and your attention today. And I am intending that you took away some pointers that are going to help you to be more effective and efficient and productive with your time. And thank you again for Tandra for this this opportunity to provide this training for you. And have a wonderful day.